All right, we are live. It is the Awesemo NFL Live Before Lock Monday Night Football edition. Kyle, 2020 giveth and 2020 taketh away. I'm talking about what could have been our third Monday night doubleheader of the season. Alas, no more. There's been quite a bit of changing with the NFL schedule to accommodate this. I figure they can handle maybe one or two more teams doing this, and then they're really going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I'm just kind of surprised that they aren't trying to, or aren't more open to making a week 18 or even a week 19. Like, I get they have these like schedules to fill. I would imagine the Super Bowl is kind of locked into its date, but they do have the one extra week between the Super Bowl and those final two conference championship games. So I'm a bit surprised that they're not more open to that, but it is what it is. And we will get doubleheader next Monday, right? Because the Thursday game got bounced to Monday before the actual Monday Night Football. So you'll get your doubleheader. Don't worry.
That's how it's working. I was trying to say, because I was looking at the schedule and I'm like, wait, what happened to Thursday's game? And then yeah, okay, well, that's good to know. And then I thought something about tomorrow night we have a game as well. I'm assuming there'll be a show of sorts for that because, hey, it's Showdown, and that's what we do here at Awesemo. Reminder, the Express package. I do want to remind everybody that the NFL Express package, $3.95 a week, and you get all of our Showdown content. Then you also get the Awesemo Big Board, which Alex ranks his players both for half point and full point PPR. That's something very helpful if you want to have 2v2s. You can kind of look at where players are, or if you're just wondering what you're doing for season long, it covers everything except the traditional league. I am still somehow in two leagues that don't have PPR. How does that work? Is that even allowed anymore?
I'm in an industry league that is done specifically as non-PPR, so it can be made for as content for non-PPR leagues. That's the only one I'm in, though, is like a marketing tool of some sense.
Yeah. So in any event, we've got those games coming up. We also have within that package, you get the player projections in the ownership projection for Showdown. And as we've sort of hinted at, it looks like we could be seeing 4 showdowns a week here. So just keep an eye out for that. But $3.95 a week, you also get the Awesemo lineup builder included in that. Now that is where you can hand build the lineups. You get your rankings and you see how you are against the masses, aka chalk, and how you are from a value perspective. And then those, while you are hand building those from the pick list, you can export those out and then upload them if you so choose. So for people that like to make 5-10 lineups, that's the perfect thing. Or if you want to play around and find that one elusive perfect lineup like Kyle does on Sundays, that's one way you can do that. All right, let's jump on in. First off, despite having 2 sodas while we were on air and one after, I did not make it through the fourth quarter of last night's game, which was a shame because my Seattle Seahawks came back and won in excellent fashion. What was that? 13 plays, 2 minutes, 94 yards or something like that. Look at Russ Wilson go. Impressive. Yeah,
man, he can cook. He can cook, but it did. We talked about it. You said, what was the one thing I was afraid of when we were locking? I was like, not playing DK Metcalf. And, it happens, though. It is what it is. Hopefully we get a good showdown slate tonight. It was a fun game. I don't mind what we saw. It was a great game. I had some good season-long teams, some good best ball teams, so it's all good.
All right, well, let's jump on into tonight's game. Thank you, everybody. Please do hit that like button. We're just giving everybody a moment to collect. We have 55 minutes until kickoff. Most everything straightforward at this point. Just going to be some questions about how we want to handle the health of Jared Cook and Mike Williams, who are both active tonight. Notable inactives are Joe Reed for the Chargers. They are missing a couple offensive linemen as well. For New Orleans, there is no Adam Troutman, no Janoris Jenkins, no Justin Hardy. Those are defensive backs. And then obviously Michael Thomas, his ankle's better, but he got in a fight in practice. So I don't know if this combination of they have a bye week next week and he should be fully healthy coming into week 7. But boy, if you drafted him early, which you would have probably had to use a top 6 to 8 or 9 pick to get him, you've had one half of football so far. So yikes. Jared Cook, I did mention, is active. So those are the main moving parts here. I think we should talk about the visiting Chargers first. Over under on me saying San Diego 1.5. I did not write it out this week, which was a big step. for me, but here we are. I am, in honor of this game being in New Orleans, going to refer to Justin Herbert as Justin Hebert, because if you're probably too young to remember Bobby Hebert, but he was a New Orleans guy who played for the Saints, and that's the French pronunciation of Herbert, but he was Bobby Hebert. So there we go. All right. We're going with Justin. We've got a rookie making his fourth start. He has shown improvement in each of his 3 games. He is averaging 310 yards passing, along with multiple touchdowns in 2 of those 3 games. New Orleans passing defense in the top third of the league. However, as we mentioned, no Janoris Jenkins. They're a little bit dinged up. What do you want to do with our rookie here? Is he captain worthy? Because right now we're going to try to come up with reasons that you should not just use Alvin Kamara. The other game is, are we going to call him Kamara? What are we going with? Let's just change his name every time we say it.
I think I'm a Kamara guy. But every once in a while I'll throw in a Kamara to mix it up with. In regards to Herbert, it is quite interesting.
Come on,
Hebert. Justine Hebert. In regards to Hebert, we have a guy who, interestingly, I believe he has 3 guys in the past probably 2 weeks who all have, in a game, 1 target for a touchdown. Guyton, Donald Parham, and one of the other guys has a single target in the game that all went for touchdowns. I think that is obviously fluky, but it is quite interesting, because if that is in the cards that he could throw a touchdown to one of these random guys, one to Hunter Henry and one to like Justin Jackson, that is how you get a quarterback into the captain spot, is you have them throw touchdowns to 1 to 3 different guys each. Really, if he's going to double anyone with touchdowns, they're almost without a doubt. Like, you need like the Mike Evans 2 catches, 2 touchdowns type of line for a 2 touchdown player to not be the optimal captain. So I'm not too keen on Herbert at the captain spot, although I'd probably prefer him over Breeze. And he does have a small amount of mobility. I believe he's got over double-digit yards in every game, but he hasn't even hit 20 yet. He has 12 carries, I believe, but 2 of those, one was a aborted snap, one was a kneel. So he's averaging like 3.3 carries a game. It's not nothing. It's more than Drew Brees offers you by a pretty reasonable margin, but it's not even Russell Wilson, who's not old Russell Wilson. It's not, what we got from Deshaun Watson, what we'll get from Murray, Jackson. It's just a little bit. So the Venn diagram of him throwing touchdowns, not to just one guy or not just double to one guy, and then adding a little bit of rushing is small, but it's not non-existent. If you're building 150, I think it's worth considering having some exposure to him. I'm generally out on DraftKings on having quarterbacks my captain unless they are significant rushing threats or they're an extreme outlier in who they're throwing their touchdowns to. I think like Josh Allen is the ideal player to meet these criteria. Herbert, loosely meets the criteria. Some rushing, has definitely thrown touchdowns to a bunch of different guys. But when you look at the targets, oh my God, like Keenan Allen, I believe, has 40 targets in the 3 games with Justin Herbert. So because we're seeing so much volume on Keenan Allen, I would expect if Herbert throws like 3 to 4 touchdowns, Keenan Allen's got a good chance to double. So Herbert, okay in captain, love him in flex. On FanDuel, you can definitely make the argument that he just straight up deserves to be one of the best captain plays on the slate, or MVP plays, to be clear.
All right. I concur. I got really nothing else to add on that. For me, it's the volume that he likely is going to get. I'll take the mistakes with it, because when we compare him to Breeze, just don't know that it's going to be there. We know the Saints want to run. We know the Chargers would like to run as well. However, missing a couple offensive linemen, plus being on the road, even though I tried to find if there was going to be fans. So the last game in New Orleans, they had 750 friends and family that were doing some testing to see how do we handle this, how far apart are people going to be, yada, yada, yada. So they opened up a couple of the sections to do that. I couldn't find any information if there was going to be anybody there in limited fashion. So I guess my guess is no, there will not be tonight in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. The next, so let's kind of coast on in here to running backs. Ooh, I do want to mention 2 things. One, free. I'm going to drop the link in here. So let's get that likes up to 100, but this is our free tool for the day. This is the NFL Showdown rankings. Jordan Klein behind the glass here has been producing. He's been showing those on the screen next to us. What this is part of the Express package as well, but you get player grade rankings from Alex. And what he has done is he assigns a value and a grade as which is efficiency, point per dollar, and then he assigns a point grade, and you can kind of get an idea of where things are. He has these for all of the different sports. I find it helpful for golf as well as for NASCAR, because then you can kind of group people by relative ranks and sort of see what he's doing there. We do it in basketball. There were some people that were trying to reverse engineer his projections based off of this, and they actually got pretty close. I think this was 2 years ago. Not to fear, we're using Alex's projections anyway now, but I think they were having some fun with that. And he said, they were getting kind of close. So we got some smart people here in the Slack chat. You also get that as part of the Express package. So you want to look at that. The other thing I want to mention is Awesemo odds, and this is great for player props. We'll talk about player props here in a bit, but I'm going to drop that link as well. But this is a new associated site that we have here. So it's called Awesemo Odd Shopper. And what it does is it shows you all of the different lines and wagers that you can get at at 6 different sites. And you can have a lot of fun with this. So that was, I don't know if that link is going to work. So let me just drop in one more here. But what I like to use it for is player props. So passing yards is the one I was trying to share. And I think I dropped a bad link in, but let's give it that one. So the fun one that you can do is just up at the top, you can just type in a player's name and it'll show you all of their all of their props. So let's look at, I'm just going to spell it Bear, but there we are. So Justin Herbert, 260.5 over under. I believe Awesemo has him projected for almost 300 yards. What would you like to do with that? How do you want to approach it? Since we were talking about the youngster here against a team without Janoris Jenkins again tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of confused as to how we get these lines. And I think if you look at Odd Shopper, pretty much the industry is in consensus on that 260.5 number. Is that still right? Because I know in the morning, basically everyone had the line at 260.5. That's not even close to our projection. I think our projection has him, at least this morning, it had him over 300. He gets Mike Williams back. Like, I know he loses Austin Eckler. That's quite disappointing because he is one of the best receiving backs in the league, but he does get Mike Williams back. He's been aggressive when he's been throwing. He's gone, I think his lowest game has been 290. And this is a game with a fairly high total. I just, this line was maybe the softest line floated out of all props you could find or at least of the showdown slate. I don't know about of the week, but this is just like our projections are higher. His season average and his lowest of the season are all higher. Maybe it's giving the Saints defense without Janoris Jenkins still some credit, but I can't find myself any reason not to bet this over. I even wrote it up for another site that, Odd Shopper shows you this is, no matter where you look, bet the over on Justin Herbert.
Yeah, and that's something. So I'm in Virginia now, and we will have sports betting, but not until at some time next year. So I'm trying to get up to speed and learn all the tools now because I would like to dabble with the player prop part of it. I'm not as excited about teams and totals like that, but I kind of like the game within the game, and I think that'll be where I kind of find my lane for that. All right. Now we kind of hinted on it. No Austin Eckler. We've got two choices here, focusing on DraftKings in particular. We've got Josh Kelly, who I'm guessing we'll see about 60 to 70% of the snaps. It's the rookie fourth rounder from UCLA. We also have Justin Jackson, who showed some flashes last year. He's kind of been the change of pace guy. He did play 40% of the snaps in the game that Austin Eckler got injured in. So sort of my question to you here, we don't have a track record of what's going to happen without Eckler. We're kind of guessing. We've got a rookie with a little bit of fumbling problems. We got Justin Jackson just in his third year. He's showing a little bit of flashes here, but neither one of these guys is great. They're not bad. But we could see a hot hand situation. The pricing, however, is really turning me off of Josh Kelly just because he's priced like he is going to be Austin Eckler light. And I don't know that that's going to be the case. What do you want to do with these guys? Do they even sniff captain or MVP potential? Are they utility plays, or are you trying to come in under the field?
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario is, like you said, we see a healthy amount of Joshua Kelly, but not Austin Eckler, Joshua Kelly. We just see a good amount of rushing from him. He was, I think, an okay receiver in college, but hasn't really shown that at the NFL level, and it's not something you would expect from him. Justin Jackson, not like an incredible, he's not James White, Tariq Cohen kind of backup, but he probably does have some potential to catch passes as well. In the last year, he played 3 games with Melvin Gordon holding out. He was the 1B. He averaged 6 carries and I believe 2 catches per game. I think we could see those numbers increase because I would imagine the Chargers don't feel as confident in Kelly as they did in Eckler at the time. And dating back to the days of Melvin Gordon, Danny Woodhead, they have always committed to running a 2-back system. I think Justin Jackson is one of the better plays. I think he's going to be popular because of that, but I don't feel the need to get away from that ownership. I don't hate Kelly either, though. I think the upside of the unknown makes this backfield one that I want to attack, because there are both scenarios where Justin Jackson goes out and evenly splits and where Joshua Kelly absolutely crushes, because like you said, I think it's very possible they just run with the hot hand. If Joshua Kelly doesn't go out and fumble, he probably does get a lot of work. If he does, Justin Jackson goes out and probably smashes his price. So I just want exposure to this backfield. I do think the two are fairly negatively correlated in a way, so I don't love playing both of them together. I'd feel more comfortable going with Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara, because I think this could set up for a game where they just run the ball at will, because that's what they've done it pretty well in terms of Michael Thomas being out. They took to the ground and it's worked. On the other side, I do think there's a bit more of negative correlation between the two backs. So I don't love playing them both in the same lineup. I don't think it's impossible if that hits. It's just not my favorite way to play this slate. And I want exposure to both. I think more preferably in the flex, I'm getting Justin Jackson just because he's so much cheaper and we just don't know how the backfield's going to shake out. The pricing indicates that we can assume Joshua Kelly is the guy. I'm not sure we can assume, so I like Justin Jackson more, but I still think it's okay to play specifically Joshua Kelly because the projection is that he does get more carries and probably more targets too. I think it's okay to have a small amount of him in captain, but there are just better captain plays on the slate for me.
All right. I want to talk about our sponsor, No House Advantage. It is just that. We mentioned some prop betting. That's what they do. It's a prop fantasy site. So it's what's called peer-to-peer, meaning you're not betting against them. You're not going against the house. There is no house advantage. So they're over there at nohouseadvantage.com. How their games work is it's just the same formats that you're used to seeing on DraftKings and FanDuel and Yahoo. You play head-to-head. You can play 50-50s. You can play in GPPs. Fair amount of overlay. They're not a big site at the moment, but we do have an advantage here at Awesemo. So how it works is they'll put out about 60 or so questions for various games or game sets. For instance, tonight, we had mentioned Justin Herbert's passing yards. So theirs is set at 258.5. You would choose, do you want to go over or under if that's one of the questions that you want to do? We've been saying, yes, you should choose the over. The median projection for Awesemo is 300 yards. Tonight's projection is 315 yards. So you would select that, you choose 5 of these questions, and then you weight them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with your confidence rating. Now, here's where the fun begins. That seems like a one that everybody would want to do. Perhaps we fade that or we go in another direction. And then if that fails, all of a sudden, we're the ones that have a chance to rocket up the leaderboard. So there's a lot of game within the game. What we have here is all of their milestones and lines, and then next to it we have the percentage of likely success that it goes over or under. Sometimes those numbers are a little confusing, so there's also a column that says pick the over or pick the under for each of those. So it's something that's very helpful. You can jump on in and do that now. If you use the promo code Awesemo, they will match your first deposit up to $20 in site cash, and additionally, if you refer a friend, you will get $5 once they make a deposit. All right. Wide receivers. So we do have Mike Williams tonight. The big question is, how healthy do you think he is? If he was coming into this game unscathed 100%, he would probably be my number 4 or 5 player, especially on DraftKings with the full PPR in this particular matchup, with all the attention going to Keenan Allen. I don't know that he's healthy, so he's about my 12th favorite player. I'm not overly excited, but as I like to say on these shows, when I play the showdown slates, I wave goodbye to my money and I hope some of it comes back. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I'm willing to embrace a little bit more risk. This feels like a potential in-game injury waiting to happen with the hamstring. What do you want to do with Mike Williams?
Yeah, in NFC, I actually capped my ownership to way less than I was getting because, yeah, Mike Williams does just give me in-game injury vibes. He's constantly injured. He's not been awfully efficient throughout his career, and it's always been quite fluky. Some seasons he has all of the touchdowns on no targets, and some seasons he has a ton of targets and air yards and just cannot score. I just can't see myself getting to him with the incredible amount of targets we've seen Keenan Allen have. I think he comes back, maybe isn't a decoy, but it's hard to project a great role for him when we've seen Hunter Henry get a lot of targets, Keenan Allen get a lot of targets. Some of these no-name players come in and score. I think he will be on the field, not just, standing on the outside being a decoy. I think he'll get some run. And at 5,000, he's a good price. I didn't go completely zero on him, but I don't feel confident that he plays the full game. Like how could you feel confident that he plays the full game at a full role? Those two things don't seem to be awfully likely. I think they'll either come back, they'll try and play him full role, and he runs a heavy risk of getting re-injured, or what more likely happens is they ease him back and he doesn't play 100% of snaps, even though when healthy, you would absolutely choose, if you were playing the Chargers optimally, to have him out there for 100% of snaps. I'm still confident that he is a better receiver right now than, guys like Jalen Guyton or KJ Hill. So I'm concerned with Mike Williams. I didn't go 0% on him, but I did actually reduce his projection, cap my ownership to him. I'm just nervous, and maybe that's just like, it's a weak play for me to just be nervous about his health. But I do think if he goes out there and gets hurt, I probably profit a lot, because I'm a little bit, because of that, over the field on some of these super cheap guys, not by much, but a little bit, and under the field on Mike Williams.
Yeah, and that's sort of the approach I'm taking as well. I want to get to Keenan Allen, as you mentioned, 40 targets in the last 3 games with Herbert under center. Let's see, he has a projected stat line of 75 yards and half a touchdown with double-digit targets again tonight. I absolutely love him. If you look across a lot of the other various projection sites out there, he was coming in as the number 1 wide receiver on the full week. So that, I think, is something that's very important to keep in mind. It is also the leverage play away from Kamara. So that is one of your pivot decisions at this point. Anything else you want to mention with the wide receivers, or shall we transition into Hunter Henry, who produces like a wide receiver quite often?
Yeah, let's talk about Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry has been pretty impressive, not only with, like I've talked about Keenan Allen's numbers, with Justin Herbert, but Hunter Henry both averaging a great, I believe it's 59 yards on 6-7 targets per game. I believe it's somewhere around 6 targets per game. He even had a good game with Tyrod Taylor, which isn't easy. Tyrod Taylor, not the greatest quarterback. When you're seeing the numbers, like the 300-plus yard projection for Justin Herbert, you can expect Hunter Henry to be the clear number 1 tight end, playing a vast majority of the receiving snaps. It's hard to get away from him. He's a guy that I'm not quite sure I'm pushing the button on him at captain, because being a tight end captain is quite difficult, especially when you've got guys like Keenan Allen and Alvin Kamara in the same game. I think in the regular season, George Kittle's the only winning lineup captain we've seen, and he's done it twice now. Travis Kelce, I think, did it in the playoffs as well. It's a small sample, so it's not carried away. But it does tell me that essentially, as with receivers, you need to have a ton of targets or a ton of volume or big play upside to be the captain. And most tight ends simply don't have 14, 15 target upside or 30-yard down the field target upside in terms of on an individual target. So don't love him at captain, but I do think at flex, he's a pretty good play. He makes sense in Justin Herbert stacks. And I could see you approaching this game that you want to get New Orleans run game, both with Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray, and then run it back with the underdog team playing from behind, getting some Keenan Allen, some Hunter Henry, looking for some Justin Herbert checkdowns or just, quick release throws. So I think he makes sense in like a Justin Herbert, not on-top, but just a heavy Justin Herbert lineup.
All right, let's see. For those of you who want to have a little bit of fun, I'm going to drop 10 $1 head-to-head contests here over there. I'm just playing on DK tonight, but I will put those in. I think that you must play. Now, I guess nothing is a must, but I think you must play Alvin Kamara in captain tonight. That is what I'm going to do. If you guys want to have a little fun, jump on in there. Username, EMac. Yes, I've been doing this long enough that I got my actual nick. Thank God I picked my nickname. I can't even imagine if I had numbers going after my name. That would just not be fun. That would not be fun. But there you go. Have fun. Laugh at me. Tease me on Twitter. But that is our fun tonight. Get us up to 225 likes, and I'll skip the next ad read. Just saying, guys. Just saying. As we move through Hunter Henry and we get to the defense here before we turn our attention over to the Saints, I am not a fan of this defense. Brees does a good job taking care of the ball, does not get sacked a lot, just 5 sacks through the first 4 games. We know they want to rely on the run. They're looking for a return touchdown or splash play. That Brees usually doesn't let that happen. So I'm not really excited about the Chargers defense. Anything you would like to mention about them?
Yeah, no, you exactly hit it. In some games, I can see a shootout like having potential because you do get a lot of quarterback dropbacks. So this could be sacks, interceptions. Both of those are decent chances of producing touchdowns. Brees just doesn't do that. It's not his style. The short A-dot throws, like a dump off to Alvin Kamara, is so unlikely to result in an interception. He doesn't take sacks at a crazy rate. No real reason to go to the heavy underdog in a high total Chargers defense. I think both kickers are in play. I'm definitely leaning Will Lutz because the price discrepancy doesn't reflect the fact that one of these teams is projected to score over a touchdown more. So neither defense nor kicker really appeals to me on the Chargers side. I don't think it's impossible. Like you said, anything can happen on a showdown slate. It's not impossible. These guys make the optimal lineup, especially I think Badgley makes a decent amount of sense. It's a high total. Anything could happen. You kick a few field goals. But I'd rather look to the other side for both my defense and my kicker if I'm getting those in my lineup.
Defense and kicker, I am setting a rule no more than 2 combined. I didn't split them out, but I've capped them all enough that I'd be surprised if I got 2 in the same lineup, but I will allow it on that one. All right. So Breeze, is this a revenge game? How many people remember he played his first 5 years with the Chargers? Probably not many. He's been with the Saints for the last 15 years. He left the Chargers 6 years before DFS was invented. So just throwing that out there for a little bit of fun. He's a Hall of Famer. I really don't want any part of him tonight. I'll allow him to be a flex play. I may have him in a couple lineups as captain, but I highly doubt it. I would rather go to Kamara, so we'll use this as the springboard for that one. There was my Kamara. We're going to go with Kamara now. But I would say that I see in chat they're saying don't play him unless you want to share with everybody. We thought that the last 2 times the Saints have been on the showdown slate, our projections have the field's been under our ownership projections. His price has come up for him to be the top rushing option as well as the wide receiver 1 without Mike Thomas. You're paying the full premium. That's going to keep his popularity somewhat suppressed. I want to go for broke on this one. I probably will have him on a combined 90 to 95% of my lineups. I'm looking at about 30% or 40% in the captain spot. I'm planting my flag there. I mostly play, and so people are going to say, well, you're going to tie. No, because I play the 250 and 500 person contests and a lot of 3-mans head-to-heads, etc. I like to give my opponents opportunities to make mistakes. So that's what I am hoping for tonight. Do you like Breeze? How much do you love Kamara? The floor is yours.
Yeah, I think I was almost exactly in line with everything you said about Kamara. I think even if you're playing in like high entry or not high, like high entry total tournaments, you can still go there. And I would pitch it in like 2 ways. One, like he's just the best play of the slate. And 2, there is a breaking point where if you guaranteed me that 98% of the time he was going to be the optimal captain on a given slate, and people are only going to play him at 30 to 40%, sure, you're probably still likely to chop, but there's plus expected value there. I think, and like, I just can't find myself getting away from him. He just seems like so far and away the optimal play. He's seen a 30% target share in the games without Michael Thomas. Like you said, he's not only the wide receiver 1, he is one of the better wide receiver 1s in terms of market share numbers. And because he produced so much yak, he is one of the most elusive, maybe like pretty clearly the most elusive running back in the league, can do so much on a single target that, yeah, he's the team's number 1 running back and the number 1 receiver by a considerable margin. I'm with you. Even in larger field tournaments, I think I'd rather look to go elsewhere, look to maybe run potentially 2-4. I think 2-4 with Kamara captain could get you a bit unique. Running some of these weird one-off plays, like a Marquez Callaway potentially, or some of the cheap Chargers guys could all be ways that you get your lineups different. Interesting one I've been thinking about is Kamara no Breeze. It saves you some salary. You can't play all the good plays. And Kamara has, I believe, 14 red zone carries. Like, well, are we just entirely ruling out him having a potential double rushing touchdown game? That probably nukes Breeze, unless this game smashes the total. If Breeze throws 1 touchdown, Kamara rushes in 2. And if that 1 touchdown goes to Kamara, oh, baby. Even if it doesn't, a 2-touchdown game is probably good enough for the captain spot. So Kamara as a rusher could just nuke Breeze on his own. It would give you a bit of a unique build to go just even if you went, I don't know, onslaught, but if you just had a decent amount of Saints in your lineup, but no Breeze, would be different. You could run it back with some weird Chargers plays. I just think there are better, more plus EV ways to get different and try to not chop the top, which should be your goal if you're playing in large field tournaments. You don't want to immediately enter a lineup that's going to have 500, 200, whatever amount of people. You want a solo win first. That's how you increase EV. But you also, I don't think you increase EV by fading Alvin Kamara. So for me, I think Kamara is a building block at captain, and I'm trying desperately to get unique elsewhere. And I think you can still do that on this slate. And one thing that probably helps is there's no like glaring values. Like Tyler Johnson was the easiest 200 play of my life on whatever Bucks was that Thursday. easiest play I've ever made is Tyler Johnson. You know, he was fairly high owned. I don't even know if he made the optimal lineup. He projected so incredibly well. There's no one who's just a smash play on this slate. So I don't think you absolutely like have to guarantee that you chop. You can play some of the weird plays. Like I like Marquez Callaway. I'm sure there's like Benny Fowler. I think we maybe talked about him before. A lot of guys are going to split the cheap ownership. Going in on one of those guys plus Kamara captain, I think is a far better way to increase your EV than fade the best play of the slate.
All right, I'm just looking, I saw our buddy the news guy El Negro Loco talking about a little overlay hunting. I was just seeing what's going on over there at FanDuel. They were not, or they're a little tardy paying things out. They had some technical glitches that they were working through. So I wanted to see if it looked like their contests were going to have some heavy overlay. Not particularly at this point. Even the single entry may not quite fill, but we still have a half hour, and they're all tracking at about 75-80%. So I think those will probably end up filling, but just wanted to throw that out there. We leave no stone unturned on this. And the other thing I wanted to mention is, so guys, what we're trying to do here is teach you the different strategies and leveraging on how to play these showdown slates. The contests are massive. The player pools are limited. And yes, the lineup constructions I'm seeing in chat is they're saying, if you go with Kamara, you're going to have a very similar lineup. Yes, unless you choose to be different. So we're talking and trying to uncover some of the ways that you can do that. And that's the important thing. We're analyzing things over a long sample size, but what happens in one chaotic NFL game is anybody's guess. How do you best set yourself up to potentially find success on the different outcomes or the different ways the game can end up going is very, very important for these. So that's why these shows are kind of a combination of how do you do that as well as how are we analyzing. Tonight, not a lot to uncover for us, so it's leaning a little bit more on the strategy side of things, but there we are. I do want to point out that Josh Engelman does free YouTube videos, usually the morning of, for these showdown slates. He mentioned I think it would listen to his FanDuel one. He had said that 37% of the time, Alvin Kamara in his simulations comes out as needing to be the MVP / captain. We're coming in on DK with him at about 24%. So that 13% difference means if you're playing him at captain and less of the field is, you have that built-in inherent expected value. That's what EV is. Or if it's me, it's entertainment value. And I'm always plus EV.
It's EMac value.
EMac value. There we are. But now you spend a ton of time researching this, diving through what has transpired previously, what happens. And I know you look at a lot of the games other than just the showdown slates, because we're picking 3 out of the 16 potential games per week. That it's kind of a random sample size. But what are you seeing at this type of game? Does this feel more like a 3-3 or a 4-2/2-4 game for you? I don't think it's going to be a 1-5 game.
Yeah, I am not. 1-5 is something I've not done any of. I think it's hit twice maybe in the past year and a few weeks or whatever. I just can't bring myself to get. I think that is, we talk about EV. I think that is a point where, sure, you get unique, but like if you played every single player that was $200, like if you just made the lineups that were the active players at $200, you would certainly be unique and you would never win. And obviously 1-5 doesn't. It's not that it never wins. I don't think it wins at the rate that is valuable to play. I think 2-4 is probably where that line tips, where you see 2-4 is going to be relatively unpopular, and it deserves to be unpopular. It's not going to hit incredibly often, but it hits more often than people would expect, and that's where you want to play. I think the easiest way to play like a 2-4 lineup tonight, which does make some sense, and I think it makes a ton of sense with Keenan Allen specifically, is that you have very good, like incredible market share numbers and just target total numbers. If Justin Herbert and the Chargers get behind, they're going to be throwing, they should at least, you would expect a team to be behind, throwing a lot. And that means a lot of targets for Keenan Allen. So Keenan Allen doesn't necessarily even need his team to score a ton of points to be the optimal captain. If he gets 15 targets, I think he had wasn't 19 like 2 weeks ago or something, it was insane. If he gets double digit targets, if he pushes a dozen, 14, 15, that's probably a decent chance at him being the optimal captain play. And you can still run him back with all of the Saints, assuming the Saints get up early and just hammer the run, or even Drew Brees passes a bunch of touchdowns. I don't care what you do. I think in 2-4 stacks, a guy with a high market share and who makes sense, like Joshua Kelly makes no sense in that scenario, in my opinion. Keenan Allen makes a lot of sense because the team would be targeting him a ton. So I think 2-4 makes a ton of sense. 5-1, just another way that I think is under-owned relative to its odds of hitting. I personally struggle to think that the Chargers could be the 5-1, but we've seen it's been a crazy season. Anything can absolutely happen. I don't even hate Chargers 5-1s, and it does make a lot of sense for the same reasons. Alvin Kamara with incredible market share, both good market share on the ground, but obviously the target share is really what you're looking at for Alvin Kamara. Does make sense as the 1 in a 5-1. And both of us were just meh on Drew Brees. I think even in flex, I don't absolutely love him. I think he's fine, but we could see them just rush touchdowns. So I like both, just kind of the polarized ends outside of 1-5. It's a bit too far for me.
All right. As we circle back here, let's kind of hit on the run. We talked about Kamara, the do everything. You've got Latavius Murray, who both he and Kamara can find success in the same game. We've watched him do it for the last couple of weeks. Murray's role is a little more specific in that the Chargers need to kind of have a lead, but he's not just a mop-up duty back. They don't want to give more. Ideally, they don't want to give more than a dozen or so carries to Kamara, and they'd like them to be high leverage carries. But they want to run. So therefore, Murray's going to get somewhere between 12 and 16 touches himself. And that, he might get a couple targets but he'll probably get 10 to 15 carries if things go as the Saints hope they do with a positive or even neutral game script there. There's a lot of value in that. He's not really priced like that. I've set no rules to eliminate those guys from being on the same team together. And then grouping in the do everything guy, well, not the Alvin Kamara do everything guy, but the Taysom Hill. Someone was asking, is he the last guy in for DK Cash? I would say I would not want to play him on FanDuel. He is priced somewhat enticingly on DraftKings. However, we have to treat him as someone who's going to be on the field for about 20 to 25% of the snaps. He'll be there in a variety of ways, but how is he going to get fantasy points for us? A lot of the times he's in there just to make the defenses think. So really the best way for him to score is on a run. They're not going to bring him in, at the 30, I wouldn't think. So that all of a sudden you're looking at maybe a 10 or a 15-yard run that's, and a touchdown that's 7 or 8 points. He could get a similar catch for about the same. Is there a path for him to get to double-digit fantasy points? And what do you want to do with these guys? Because we're running out of Saints options. Oh, yeah, Jared Cook. There we go. We've listed all of them on one hand. We didn't even need we didn't need the thumb. We just need the 4 fingers.
Yeah, so with Taysom Hill, I think he's fine. But like you said, you can't really say anything about his snap share. He is so often, we saw this, I think I saw it with in the Philly game, Jalen Hurd as well, kind of gets out there and just runs a motion and is never going to be involved in a play. So his snap share doesn't mean much. He does have a decent amount of looks. I think it's 4 carries in the red zone, maybe an extra target as well. Getting a little bit of red zone work. He's quite cheap on DK. Like you said, I am in complete agreement. You don't need to go there on FanDuel. Has some touchdown upside, but even if he scores that touchdown, it could still be 7 points and he doesn't end up making the optimal lineup. So I don't love him. I think he's probably fine in cash because he does every single week. He gets, a few carries, a target, a pass attempt. There's some involvement for him for his price. That's a reasonable enough amount of involvement that I think even in cash you could look to him. I don't love him. I ended up getting a decent amount of exposure to him on DraftKings, and I reran my 150 because I thought I had too much of him. So that tells you anything. I'm not in love with him. Like you said, his upside, there's no scenario in which I can see him getting 5 targets. And that's not even, I'm not even name a large number. I can see a Marquez Callaway going out and getting 3, 4, or 5 targets because if he just, we don't know what's going to happen between him and Benny Fowler. If he goes out and runs as the number 3 and this game features a ton of passing, that could happen. I don't really know where the upside comes from Taysom Hill outside of a double score. And sure, it could happen, but I think I just definitely capping my ownership. I don't love Taysom Hill. I don't love Jared Cook either. I just think it's similar, not the same, but similar to the Mike Williams situation where we just don't know where his health is going to be. At least Mike Williams does kind of seem to have, maybe that's not why he's priced as cheap as he is. He's got a reasonable price for his health. Jared Cook would probably have to be a bit cheaper for me to get excited about him. That does give me somewhat of a passing interest in Josh Hill, another one of these guys where I think if you want to run Alvin Kamara captain, you have to get weird somewhere. You can't be playing Alvin Kamara and then have Keenan Allen and Drew Brees, all of these guys. You can't play all the good plays. And even if you could, everyone would be doing it. So Josh Hill, now that we have Adam Troutman out, we have Jared Cook still nicked up. He was questionable up until today. I think Josh Hill makes a decent amount of sense. Another cheap guy that could just get you a little bit different. All he needs is a handful of targets, and another guy that if Jared Cook goes out, you could actually see Josh Hill having some upside. Maybe unlike Taysom Hill. So I don't hate Josh Hill. And in terms of, I think we named them, but we didn't really touch on our split. I'll ask you the same. I prefer Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith. Initially, I was actually, luckily on the night that we saw the Traquan Smith, I think it was a double touchdown game, I was on him there. But the snaps, the targets, and the air yards have all been in favor since Michael Thomas has been out, have all been in favor, only slightly, but been in favor of Emmanuel Sanders. And I think our ownership actually had Traquan Smith as a slight edge. They're similar, but they had him as a slight edge. If the volume is going to go one way and the public is going to go the other, I am all over Emmanuel Sanders. So I'll have a spattering of him at captain. I don't think that's such a bad play. A 2-touchdown game probably puts him in contention with a Kamara or a Keenan Allen. And because of my love for Emmanuel Sanders or my love of the public's dislike of him, I'm not going to be super on Traquan Smith. I'm not zero on him, but I'm way over the field on Sanders, and I'm under the field on Traquan Smith. How do you feel about this split?
Yeah, I actually have moved up a little more on Emmanuel Sanders. So I mentioned I dropped my DK head-to-heads there in the lobby. So if there's still any left, you guys can get them. I'm playing Sanders on that one. Now, in the first game where we did not have Michael Thomas on the Showdown slate, I said that I did not think there was going to be one direct beneficiary amongst the pass catchers for his volume. It was either going to be spread around to different people or it was going to go to Kamara. That's more or less what's come into play. When Cook was healthy, he didn't really see an uptick. We've seen just a passel of receivers come through here. Now, Sanders did get 9 targets in the last game. We also know that Drew Brees, well, he's not incapable of throwing deep anymore. It's not part of his game. It hasn't been part of the New Orleans game for a long time. But that's where Traquan Smith can really make his hay. Since Mike Thomas has been out, he's averaging half a dozen targets per game. That's totally fine. He's still fast. All he's got to do is just break off. I'm not saying it correctly, but if he just breaks into the secondary, he can outrun people. So while it's not going to be a 40-yard in the air pass, he can still score from distance. So I'm not as worried about that. I was kind of interested in Deontay Harris until we learned that he's going to be out with a hamstring issue. He's a guy that was pretty cheap. He's getting a couple carries per game, couple targets per game. But things are consolidating now. And we know Drew Brees, much like you were saying with Justin Herbert, who's he going to go to? Do we know we've got Guyton and Parham and all these guys that get 1 target, 1 touchdown? Well, Drew Brees is the inventor of that, for the love of Pete. How many times have we seen some random tight end, Josh Hill looking at you, and especially we've seen Traquan Smith do it 2 years ago, Ted Ginn, just these guys. It's like, wait, he got a touchdown. Some nameless, I can't even think of their names, but they're like scrubby wide receivers that somehow get elevated on the practice squad because of injury. They catch a touchdown, and then 3 weeks later, they're off the team. Drew Brees does not play favorites, but I'm liking Sanders in this. So I've come a long way around, but we're seeing, he did have 9 targets last week. This is slightly cherry picking, so I'm going to qualify this. In his 3 games, in his 4 games, he's had either 90 yards or a touchdown in 3 of them. Now, this is not volume because his total line on the season is 22 targets, 14 catches, 182 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he had a touchdown, crappy yardage, touchdown, okay yardage, and then the 90-yard game. So I'm okay with him. We're not doing cartwheels. Let's not forget he's 31 or 32. He's been in the league. I mean, how many people remember he used to play for Pittsburgh once upon a time? He's been around forever, but I'm okay with this. Super chat here from Aiden Queskin. Josh Hill or Callaway? I think that's a valid point. I am actually going Callaway in this one. I'm not excited by either. Josh Hill could play 60% of the snaps and not get a target.
Yeah, that was, I think that was one of the other games where I had, I think that maybe it was the same Traquan Smith game where, yeah, he's a dude who just seems to be out there a lot, and he's probably just a blocker, like just a guy who is the most average replacement level player. When you have guys like Alvin Kamara and Emmanuel Sanders and even Traquan Smith on the field, you're not going to get a lot of Josh Hill targets. Eileen Callaway as well, although I have exposure to both of them, probably because I have a lot of Kamara at captain, you have to make some cheap plays. So I have a decent amount of exposure to both relative to the field, but I do give a slight lean to Callaway. A little concerned that Benny Fowler gets in there. I think they played the exact same amount of snaps last week, but Callaway saw the only target that wasn't to the only receiver target, at least, that wasn't to their top 3 receiving options. So Eileen Callaway, Benny Fowler scares me a little bit, but I do think Callaway would be the preferred choice of him, Hill, and Fowler.
Yeah, and for perspective, I have 4% Fowler, 4% Callaway, and 0 Hill. So we're not doing cartwheels here, and I've made 100 lineups. for that. I think we've meandered our way through everything here on the Saints. The one thing I do want to say is I am okay with the Saints defense, even with the people, Janoris Jenkins and others being out. That's kind of counterbalanced by the offensive line woes of the Chargers, as well as not having Austin Eckler, as well as having a quarterback making his 4th start of his career. Sadly, this won't be a raucous crowd because there will be no fans in attendance in this game, but it's still Monday Night Football. It's still a road game, and I'm feeling pretty good about the Saints having the opportunities of volume. We're projecting, or I'm projecting a more likely script where the Chargers are playing from behind. They're probably going to have to turn to the pass. That either means dropbacks, which are sack opportunities, or potential interception opportunities. Plus, the rookie's already fumbled twice in his limited time. So who knows, those could be his only 2 fumbles of the season, but I like the chances here of the Saints defense.
Yeah, I think that's a totally fine play. I don't mind it at all. Home favorites makes a lot of sense. And I think in a high enough total, defenses aren't going to be incredibly popular. And they're cheap, and I'm not getting any Chargers defense, so I did get to a decent amount of Saints defense. I'm not sure how much we talked about this. Are you excited for Keenan Allen at captain? Because outside of Alvin Kamara, he is both someone that our top showdown plays tool, yes, and like my percentages, my ownership percentages will say we are jamming Keenan Allen in at captain. And maybe I talked about it before, but I do think to the chat saying that you can't play Alvin Kamara unless you want to chop 100 ways. If you feel that way, you are chopping less ways by playing Keenan Allen at captain by a fairly significant margin. I think on DraftKings specifically, on FanDuel, it's a much different conversation. But on DraftKings specifically, his captain ownership versus our projected, like the chances he actually is the top captain, is quite a gulf. So I think Keenan Allen, if you want to get off of Alvin Kamara as chalk, I understand that. I still think Alvin Kamara is worthy chalk, but if you want to get off of him, play a lot of Keenan Allen because those targets are incredible, especially on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it becomes much less enticing. Alvin Kamara is a great play. The quarterbacks, especially Justin Herbert, comes much to the forefront. Even maybe a little Joshua Kelly gets up there, even maybe a little Latavius Murray. Keenan Allen, not the best play because so much of his game is predicated on reception specifically. But on DraftKings, I'm going to be, he's my number 2 captain by a pretty significant margin. I have most of my captain allocated to Kamara, Allen, and then a spattering of a handful of other players.
So I'm going Kamara right now at 38%. Plus, he's also going to be the captain of my main lineup. So that means I'm going to weight him a little bit more. I've got Keenan Allen at 27%, Justin Herbert at 10%, and then Josh Kelly and Traquan Smith are at 5% each, and then everybody else is 1 or 2%. No kickers in captain, no defenses, 3% Emmanuel Sanders, 5% Josh Kelly. But I'm hoping for a 2-touchdown game there because that could be something that means it's not going to the receivers. Therefore, that makes an interesting build from that. I am making sure that I do have so Kamara, I think, literally is in every lineup I've made in either captain or so he's in 60% of my utility and 38%. So he's probably not in 2% of my lineups.
Yeah, I think I have him somewhere north of 90%. It wasn't 100%, but it was, it was closer to 100 than it was even 80. So,
yeah, and that's usually not the case. So this is, and I harken back to our other shows. We got 10 minutes left here. Reminder, hit that like button. Didn't quite get to 200, so we're going to talk about No House Advantage in just a second. But we've got 10 minutes to get your lineups in. Definitely check that out. Start throwing some questions in for chat. We'll talk about anything that you guys have. No House Advantage, sponsor of the show. Promo code Awesemo gets you a match up to $20 with your first deposit. There you go. Wasn't so hard, was it, guys? So the other core plays I've done is Herbert at captain with with Allen. I've done Allen at captain with Herbert. And then I've also made sure that Kamara was in some function of those lineups. So I'm going very heavy on those 3 guys. We'll see what happens. I'm okay with it. Again, I've talked about this every slate. It's showdown, wave goodbye to the money. I hope some of it comes back. This is an entertainment thing. It's a fun way to spend $100. There we are. Can you have Sanders as a captain in a lineup without Breeze? No site given.
I don't think so. I think for me, that basically means either Alvin Kamara busts like pretty hard, or I don't know. I can't really imagine a scenario where it probably means that Emmanuel Sanders scores 2 touchdowns. That's my lean, is that if he is the optimal captain, that either like the game is just miserable. Maybe the game is miserable and one of the 4 touchdowns that are scored goes to Emmanuel Sanders. So maybe that's how it happens. But given that I don't have any reason to believe this is a smashing under, I think you do need probably 2 touchdowns from Emmanuel Sanders, and that is very possible. And I do have some Sanders at captain. But to get there without Breeze would be a pretty tall order. I don't think so. Maybe you feel differently. I don't feel great about playing Emmanuel Sanders without Drew Brees.
I'm actually okay with it from the DraftKings perspective, just because he could get those 9 targets, 9 catches, 90 yards. Brees doesn't throw a touchdown, and he outperforms Brees dramatically.
Or 1 touchdown from Brees could not be the optimal. Like, it's very possible that Brees' only touchdown goes to Emmanuel Sanders. 1 touchdown is not necessarily enough to put a quarterback in the captain spot if he doesn't, or in the flex spot at all, if he doesn't have a great game. So I think there are a few outs that's happening. I probably wouldn't skew too heavily towards it, but I think it's possible. You're probably right that it is more possible than I give it credit for.
All right, they're asking who would be the chalk on Super Draft tonight. Let me call up Super Draft and I will find out. Can you play Carr over Callaway? Why am I not knowing who Carr is in the player pool?
Yeah, I don't think we have a Carr projected. Is that a typo? I don't see I can check our projections.
Here's one while we're away. Jackson or Kelly? We've mentioned that it's kind of a coin flip. We think it's going to be a hot hand situation. Kelly is priced like he's going to get 2/3 of the work. That is no guarantee. He very well may. He also may fumble and get yanked. Anything can happen when you got these youngsters there and a very fluid situation. So I would probably take the price discount on that one. If you're playing Breeze, should you play Herbert? Oh, Carr is on FanDuel, they're saying. I would have. I meant the 3 guys I want are Herbert, Allen, and Kamara. From that point, it just becomes a thought exercise. To me, it doesn't. I don't think you need both quarterbacks. I'm very down on Drew Brees. I just don't see the volume of passing attempts to get him there. I don't see the yardage, and I don't see the touchdowns. That's a problem. 5 years ago, entirely different answer. Even if this is a Saints shootout or a shootout game, I could see Brees not having 300 yards. I could also see him not having 3 touchdowns, and I could see the Saints scoring 40 points. There are a lot of other ways that they can get in there, especially with Kamara and Murray. That's where I'm planting my flag. We'll know in 20 minutes if I was right or wrong. Well, I guess we'll know over the next 3 hours. But there we go. I better upload my lineup. So let me do that real quick.
Yeah, I agree, though, that there are more outs to Drew Brees failing than there are to Justin Herbert because he's got the legs. I expect him to throw for more yards. Like you said, Brees doesn't necessarily have the yards, doesn't give you anything with his legs. And a lot of the ways his team can score points, or at least his team can score fantasy points, are through receptions, both with Kamara and just the way that he throws. Basically, anyone on the team is going to at least get a lot of contribution through receptions, which in of their own right do not help Brees. So I think if there's one QB you want to fade, I actually have more Herbert than I have Brees, and I think it's a pretty decent gap between the two. So, and I think our projections just simply like Herbert as a better play, cheaper by a little bit. So I think if, my 3 plays are actually the exact same. My 3 plays that I'm trying to get in are a lot of Keenan Allen, a lot of Kamara, decent amount of Herbert. I don't have no Brees, but I do think that there are more outs to Brees failing and more outs to being a solid Kamara no Brees pivot, like a Kamara Latavius. I think without Brees is going to be unique enough that I really like getting into that. So yeah, Brees is kind of the odd man out of the expensive guys for me.
Let's see, running so here's my full ownership in the utility spot. Kamara 58, Herbert 51, Latavius 46, Allen 45, Brees at 38. Now I really don't have Brees at captain, so this is just a function of he's got the likelihood of he's going to have the ball in his hands on every play, so he theoretically has a decent floor. I don't see him as a huge upside play. That's kind of the difference here that I've got. So I just wanted to clarify that I'm not playing him. He's just coming into lineups I didn't hand build, or I didn't actively lock players that I wanted.
Yeah, Breeze at what'd you say, 38 is essentially with no captain is a soft fade. So although I don't have zero Breeze either, I certainly have some Breeze. But like you said, like that is not maybe not what the field would expect. And I kind of agree with you that I don't think I have any of him at captain, and not as much in flex. And given that I've already faded him at captain, it is a solid fade on both of our ends from Breeze, even though 38% sounds like a lot. As far as quarterbacks go, that is pretty low, especially without any captain consideration.
And that's a good way of putting it, a soft fade. I like that. We may have to put that in the lexicon going forward. I was playing last night. I was doing the in-game and fourth quarter basketball stuff. And with 45 seconds left, I was winning $1,500. At the end of the game, I lost $50. I had one lineup that was in a couple different contests that was at the top, and it was a unique. And then it all went south. That's what we're trying to do here. You're building your core, and we're going real heavy on these three guys. I'm playing 100 different lineups, so that's where I'm trying to get the combinations of something that's going to work out. I'm not as worried, again, because I don't play in these giant ones. I'm not as worried about being as unique as Alex and Josh and those guys that are playing the super duper top heavy contests. It's entirely different strategy there. If you play chalky there, you're either going to chop or you're going to miss the cash line. The masses are all on the same plays in those contests, and I don't know, just throwing it out, cautionary tale. Give me my chance to win. Not quite double my money would be a good night.
Yeah, I had a lineup. I think it was probably Ronald Jones lineup, and Jones was popular, not Alvin Kamara popular, but he was popular at captain. And the lineup wasn't that weird. I think it was in the mini max that I was for, 30 seconds, and right before halftime, I was solo winning first in the mini max. Didn't end up, obviously didn't do, I would tell you as soon as we logged on that I made some money. But it wasn't a weird lineup, and it still ended up being a solo good lineup. Didn't end up, winning. But I think that is kind of my exact same philosophy, is that I don't want to outright just fade the good plays. I want to try and play the good plays and then get enough combination of the good plays that I have a lot of lineups that are live to single. Like, I definitely am concerned with building single lineups, but I'm also concerned with building bad lineups. So I do think there's a balance that you strike. You should always try and get unique and try and get single lineups. But if you're building, especially if you're building 150, but even if you're building, 20 or some large field single entry, you can play good plays, and it's just about both having unique structures, like a 5-1 or a 2-4 with, Keenan Allen captain's night maybe would be your lean there. But you can build good lineups and play some chalk plays and still get either unique, or if you are only chopping it a handful of ways, especially on the largest of tournaments, that's also not the end of the world. Like, you still definitely lose some EV, but also you just can't predict which lineups are going to be chopping or not. So I'm trying to have a core where I go, especially a captain, go pretty heavy on certain guys and try and get a lot of unique lineups by playing. You're going to get some weird plays, but I think playing weird plays with good captains is probably a lot of what I do. I do have some weird captain plays, but like tonight, I'm hoping I have a lot of unique Alvin Kamara lineups because I play weird things attached to Alvin Kamara because I think he's the best captain play. And the same with Keenan Allen. I have to get a little less unique by playing Keenan Allen, though.
All right, we are essentially at lock here. So I do want to mention that we're starting it all over again tomorrow. We have all sorts of goodness there. Let me run up the schedule here, but you guys should hit that that subscription with a button here on YouTube with the notification bell, because you're going to want to know at 9 a.m. we have the MLB strategy show with Josh and Adam. At 10 a.m. you get Laffy and Matty G. How do we say Matt's last name again? Kajeski. So
just ignore the W and you've got it right. Ignore that W.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So Matt Kajeski and Laffy at 10 for the Showdown Strategy Show, because, hey, there's Tuesday Night Football. We at 11 are going to have Laffy, Sal, and Ben breaking down the full slate with the first look. 2:30, we've got the PGA Strategy Show. At 5:15, we've got Jake and Terry taking you up to lock for MLB. And then at 6, you're going to get Kyle and the boss man, Alex Baker, breaking down the Showdown slate for Tuesday, because we have the Bills. We have Tennessee, as long as nobody else has any positive COVID tests. We're going to get an extra night of football here, so you guys are going to want to check that out. I think it's time for some pizza. What's your biggest fear tonight?
That Alvin Kamara busts and I look like an idiot.
Okay. Mine is that I didn't play Jameis Winston. It's 2020. Anything's in play at this point. With that, gamers, you can follow us at Awesemo_COM. You can follow Kyle at Kyle Tweets here. And I am at EMac DFS. With that, gamers, good luck.